Sorry, hi. Hi, it's Louise Erasmus from Jacobin Magazine. The World Bank has endorsed the ANC's version of expropriation without compensation and said that this would be a positive thing for South African foreign investment. Why is it that you choose to ignore the opinion of the World Bank? You made the argument that land restoration results in often people being far away from the land that they receive. Is this not a perfect argument for expropriation without compensation? Why is it that you claim to have a non-racial approach to, first of all, land redistribution, also inequality, which is a massive problem in the country? Yet, we can see that an alternative to that would be to address the problem based on income and wealth rather than race. Is that something you'd support?
Yes, let me start off with the last question. Most definitely. We know that in this country, you cannot survive if we only have pockets of excellence. We need to make sure that we address the inequality problems in our country, and we are fully committed to play a role in that regard and assist in that regard. We believe the way to tackle inequality is not by giving a few people of the elite the opportunity to have shares in companies again and again and again, because it does not help the poor people on the ground. So when you're going to say, if we really want to break the cycle of poverty in our country, what should be done? We should break the stranglehold that the South African Democratic Teachers Union has on our schooling system. It's heartbreaking to see in every matric result that nearly half the children that go into grade 1 don't get to grade 12. And then you want to be happy about the fact that 80% of those that were luckily enough to get to grade 12, that they passed. We are happy about people passing. So if you say would we agree with focusing on poverty? Yes, most definitely. We believe that we should have a focus on poverty and not race. With regard to the World Bank, if you have statements like that, you must look at it in the broad context. We are at the verge of a downgrade by Moody's. If you listen to international commentators, as we've heard now in Davos, where people simply don't trust the government anymore. And the real test for the World Bank statement is if people are investing in our country. And there's a lack of investment. So nice words where people are trying to be polite and being diplomatic don't change the fact that we are on the verge of a downgrade.
Yeah, but the World Bank is not being diplomatic. These are according to studies that have been done. And in many, many countries around the world, South Korea, Argentina, and in fact every single modern country, land redistribution has taken place in a very designed and very orderly democratic fashion, which is what we are seeing in South Africa and is what is taking place, despite the mischaracterization.
No, I think we agree on the premise to say if it is done if land reform is done in a way that makes it successful, of course, that is also what we support. But what we are seeing now is not land reform, it's a form of nationalization because government don't give the land to individuals, they keep it for themselves. If you read an Afrikaans newspaper over the weekend, they did a study on all the land that the government has taken over, and less than half of that there are people busy with what is work being done there. If you look at corruption, there's large-scale corruption, there's a lack of capacity, and if, let me say it's not me, let's just take the former President Kgalema Motlanthe. This is not a debate, let me finish and then you can answer. If you look at that high-level report from former President Kgalema Motlanthe, he said the constitution should not change and he identified two problems. And those problems is in the first place corruption. They are in the first place corruption. And in the second place, the problem that they identified is the lack of capacity that we have because of cadre deployment. That is the real problem. And we're not against that. But because that has failed, now they simply want to continue with a further process, as Aaron's mentioned quite well, to say, if you have a failed policy and you're going to implement it more aggressively, you will have a more aggressive failure. And that is what we are against. We are in favor of a structured approach where corruption is taken out and where people are equipped. What is happening now, black farmers are set up for failure because they don't have access to capital. No one, except if you're very rich, if you George Soros would be able to fund a farming program through its own capital. But normal people have to borrow money to be able to plant and to be able to have a good crop. But if you don't get property rights, like this fact is what is happening in South Africa, 94% of land that was taken, people don't get property rights. So they cannot get funding and they're going to fail.
Okay. There are a number of things there to respond to. Firstly, the idea that all this land was taken and was not redistributed, that is because in every single country around the world, especially one where our infrastructure is broadening out, it is the function of government to expropriate land in order to build roads, in order to build power lines, in order to build things that are for the public good. And yes, this is a continuation of that function of government to expropriate land as per the Constitution that is for public good. And that is what we are seeing with this bill. So you talk about all kinds of things, farming, needing capital. Are you making an argument that we could expand farming with an investment in black farmers? And, you know, this is exactly what this is about. So I don't understand why you make an argument to say that this is a failed policy when that policy is being addressed by going after it more aggressively. You're against that for some reason. Are you just against transformation altogether?
A very nice statement you made. I'm willing to go in the debate with you at any time, but I don't think that's the forum. But let me state it again. We've said that we are in favor of developing people, but it's ludicrous if you say what is happening now is an accepted principle of governments. When governments expropriate, they pay. What we see now is governments wants to expropriate and they don't pay. And that is what we've seen. If you say that is a principle, that might have been a principle in China. It might have been a principle in the USSR. It was a principle in Zimbabwe. So if you want to say that's an international accepted principle, it is accepted for those states that want to fail. And we don't want to fail state. I can go into a debate with you later. Are there any other questions?
It's accepted across the world.
To take property without paying.
Can I think
Adams, can I just say, are you a journalist or an activist? So if you want to be an activist, No, you're not asking questions, you're making statements. You're more than welcome to make those statements, but let's just get the questions first, and then we'll look at that.
Any further questions?
Throw some softball down the plate, guys.
No, thank you. We appreciate that you came. We believe in media freedom, so you are more than willing to write. But what we also need in our country as leads is that people are not intolerant towards people that don't agree with them. We're not saying you have to agree with us. We can debate those kind of issues, but to be intolerant and to use your position as a journalist to go into an argument, you're welcome to ask questions, but what you are doing at the moment is unfortunately not journalism. And I think it's bad for journalism, because one of the pillars of democracy is a strong media where people trust, which is a platform for debate. It's not a platform for activism. And I'm sorry that we've seen that today.